Might help if I could get rid of my pharmacy board thing.
I like your other background better.
Well, if I cannot get rid of it, I will. There we go.
Uh, Jim, this is Dale Nations. Can you hear me?
Yes, Dale. Good morning.
Jim, I want to congratulate you. I'm sure happy to have you on the commission.
I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you very much, Dale.
You've been doing good work for us already.
Well, I've been sitting in a lot, wanting to help out more, so I'm really glad for the opportunity.
And I'm not sure who's calling in. Is that you, Andrew? 303 area code? And Frank will be ready to go at 10 o'clock.
Okay, sounds great. It's 10 o'clock.
Yep.
This meeting of the Arizona Oil and Gas Conservation Meeting is hereby comes to order at 10 a.m. Roll call. Commissioner Nations, are you present?
Yes, I'm here on audio.
Great. Commissioner Firebrand,
Here,
Commissioner Conway,
I'm here.
Commissioner Ballard,
Here.
and we also have our AG Adam Stafford with us, and from the Land Department, David Haig and Joe Dixon. I would like to welcome our newest member to the commission, Jim Ballard. He has been very helpful, and we're glad to have you on board, Jim.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and all of you. I'm very happy to be here.
Would you like to say anything else before we get started?
No, I'm not one for big speeches, but I have looked forward to this for many years, and really it's an honor to be here finally.
Fantastic. Administrator Schmidt, do you want to take us through? I started with item 2.
Sure. Yes, welcome, Commissioner Ballard. Look forward to working with you. Yes, on the agenda, we have item number 2A, which is a permit application that the commissioners are up for consideration on a vote on an application to drill from Ranger Development. This is for the well entitled, or the well ID 34-7B FAPD. This well is located in the Pinta Dome field. This is around wells that they already have there. Basically, the permit application was submitted to the commission and reviewed for administrative completeness. And on April 24th, we issued a letter to Ranger determining that their permit application was administratively complete. So they did meet all of the requirements for the submittals that are necessary for an application to drill according to rule. Once the administrative completeness was determined, it moved into substantive review. All of the commissioners should have had opportunity to take a look at the permit application, and a substantive review was done and completed. And from my perspective on the review from the technical aspects of the permit application, I do not see anything that is technically deficient. I think it's a fairly good plan. It's in accordance with rule and I think industry practice. So I do not see any reason for not approving the permit in my judgment. But of course, it's up to the commissioners, and I believe Mr. Hines is on the call. So if the commissioners have any questions of Mr. Hines about the permit application, I would open that up to the commissioners at this time and then take up the vote on the application.
Mr. Hines, do you have anything to say? Frank Thorwald, we should always announce who we are for the record when we speak.
Yeah, Tony Hines with IACX/Ranger Development. Appreciate the consideration for the application, everybody. We drilled a deep well in this same location, I would point out, and we actually got some gas and there was water with the production. What we thought was the Fort Apache, so now we're wanting to go back and actually test for that specifically. Again, they could not get the water isolated before we plugged that back. So this is all about re-drilling back down to on the same location to test the Fort Apache. That's what the FA stands for on the Pentadome.
Right, correct.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Hines?
Well, Mr. Commissioner, I have a brief question for Ranger. This is Commissioner Ballard. I was just trying to look real quickly. Are 640 acres more or less devoted to this well at the Fort Apache?
Yes. Just don't need.
So this is still a new pool exploration. I congratulate you on that. And just might mention the commission doesn't have very much information on the performance of the Fort Apache. If you are approved in drilling this well by the commission and have success, I would certainly, as a suggestion, ask you to gather enough information to determine a drainage radius. We at the commission don't really have any information that the Fort Apache can be drained all over 640 acres with one well. Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Do I hear a motion?
This is Commissioner Nations. I haven't had a chance to look at the agenda prior to this meeting, but I move to approve that application, that permit application.
Do we have a second?
Commissioner Firehoven, I second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Do we have any opposed? None. The motion carries. You have your approval.
Thank you, Jim.
Administrator Schmidt, do you want to move on to the
Okay.
next item?
Yes, thank you, commissioners. For the next consideration is item B, well shut-in extension request. Attachment A is the documents that's been submitted by Enterprise Anamana, Enterprise Production. It's for the caverns C3 and C5. Enterprise has a series of natural gas or LPG caverns that they have been operating over the years. 11 or 12, I would say, are in operation over the years, but these are specifically for the C3 and C5. These caverns have been taken out of service due to some pressure leaks. Back in 2019, the commission approved the extension request for the shut-in of these caverns. And so Enterprise is before us this morning to ask to re-extend that shut-in for these two caverns for the next 5 years. And so these caverns are out of service. They're currently having brine injected into them to maintain pressure. And so I know Mr. Lloyd is on the call this morning. So, Mr. Lloyd, I would just ask, could you provide a little bit of background and maybe some of the things relative to the request that you may want to fill in here?
Yes, not a problem. This is Andrew Lloyd with Enterprise Products. Our Adamana storage facility was developed in the 1970s and early 1980s. There are 11 caverns in the field, with 2 of them, number 3 and number 5, being out of service. Number 3 was drilled in 1972, and number 5 was drilled in 1980. And the most recent product of these 2. I'm sorry, Wendy just said it was hard to hear me. Let me see if I can speak up.
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
Can you hear me a little better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
That's good now.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so there are 11 caverns in the field, 2 of them out of service, number 3 and number 5. Number 3 was drilled in 1972 and number 5 was drilled in 1980. The most recent product stored in those caverns was normal butane. However, what we're doing now is maintaining a brine fill on the caverns to maintain pressure. So as the caverns were tested in 2007 and 2017, was our last passing MIT. And then there was, subsequently to those mechanical integrity tests, there was a notice of pressure loss. We did some tests after that to determine that the pressure loss was in the cavern interval and not at the casing shoe. And so we're fairly confident that the pressure loss is happening through the cavern interval and not up to surface. And so it's going down somewhere into a porous zone in the salt field. And so what that means is that if we have 3 options, basically. We can have the caverns be an active storage service, which we don't recommend because there's a potential leak. We can have the caverns be an alternative monitoring service where we continually monitor pressure, maintain the cavern to be brine full, and maintain head pressure on the cavern, or we can plug and abandon the caverns. We don't recommend plugging and abandoning the caverns, and we kind of summarize that in our proposal, that the risk of plugging and abandonment would mean that the brine would continue to leak through the cavern interval out into the porous zone below us, which would slowly lower the brine head pressure, reducing the uplift on the cavern. So we got this big cavern of space underground, and if we reduce that uplift on that roof, we risk a pretty high potential risk of a sinkhole forming. And so we are proposing to continue to inject brine, and it's a very slow leak, a very slow rate. We're injecting very few barrels of brine a year, but just enough to maintain a positive pressure on the cavern and to uplift that roof and reduce the risk of sinkholes forming.
Commissioners, do you have any questions?
This is Commissioner Mike Conway. Andrew, what's the long-term fate of these 2 caverns?
Yes, so this is a question that's come up not just in Arizona with these 2 caverns, but across our industry and underground storage, of when caverns develop leaks. How do you maintain the cavern so as to not produce a sinkhole in the future, and how long can you maintain that process? And so there's been some continued ongoing studies with research groups such as the Solution Mining Research Institute and the Pipeline Research Council International, SMRI and PRCI respectively, as to try to help better understand what we could do with these kind of caverns long term. Because of the small amount of brine needed to maintain positive pressure on these 2 caverns, Enterprise's current path forward is to just maintain positive pressure right now in perpetuity until something can be determined. And that's either, can we figure out a way to fill the cavern with maybe rock salt so as to put salt back in salt and seal up the potential leak path? Or hopefully maybe through some of the research studies that are ongoing, find a better alternative rather than an expensive endeavor is trying to slurry in, say, a rock salt into the cavern interval to try to seal the leak path in the salt up. It is not currently, impossible for Enterprise to maintain our current status quo of injecting small amounts of brine over time, until the whole facility, is profitable enough that we can support that operation without, any detriment to enterprise products. And so right now that's our best path forward until we can find a more economical and reasonable solution.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I think I would echo, this is Administrator Schmidt. I would echo the same sentiments. I think rushing to some kind of a solution in the short term would be, we want to make sure that, there's something good and viable if it's talking about trying to plug the cavern back up, in ways that Mr. Lloyd has referred to. So I think the request was for an additional 5 years, and I think that gives them some time to consider, options that are available to them to plug. It would be great if we could find a solution to plug the cavern down the road, but I think the pressure maintenance and monitoring of it over this time, and because it is such little brine and it's not a detriment, it hasn't been a detriment at all. It doesn't appear to be. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lloyd. That it doesn't appear to be exacerbating or increasing. So
No, it's actually, we've seen almost a slowdown in one of the caverns of the leak.
okay. So yeah. So anyway, that's just to kind of add my further thoughts on it.
Commissioner Feyerabend, I got thinking about it. I kind of picked up, do you think the leakage is in the lower part of the cavern?
Yes, sir. We believe the leakage is in the very lowest portion of the cavern, below where we ever stored product, because we've emptied the caverns of product and we've never seen any losses on product. Product is measured very diligently in and out, and we never saw a loss of product. So we assume that the cavern leak is definitely significantly below where we ever stored product.
Yeah, of course, this isn't my field of expertise. My first thought was, some kind of a bentonite product. If you could get it to flow with the leakage, you might be able to block it. But the other, if it's at the bottom, is maybe a barite or real dense mud that you could inject that would sift down and possibly seal those. Those are just thoughts. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Commissioner Thorwald, any risks of contamination of groundwater?
No, not that we've been able to determine. We're significantly below the groundwater table, and so we have the salt layer between us and the groundwater table, so we don't see any potential of our dense, fully saturated brine rising through the salt layer and migrating upwards into the groundwater.
Commissioners, any further questions or discussion on this? Do I hear a motion?
This is Commissioner Nations. I move that we grant the request for an extension of shut-in status for a period of 5 years.
Is there a second?
For the two caverns.
Okay. Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Conway. I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. You have your shut-in status.
Thank you, sir.
Administrator Schmidt, would you move on to the next item?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Yes, item C on the agenda, 2C, is for lobbyists. And so with that, Commissioner Thorwald, I will turn it over to you.
Okay. We, with the departure of Stephen Cooper as our backup lobbyist, we need to have another lobbyist. And I would like to suggest nominate our newest member as the backup lobbyist, Mr. Ballard. And do we have any other nominations or anybody else who would like to serve in that position? Do I have a second for my nomination of Mr. Ballard? I'm assuming, Jim, will you accept the nomination if you?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This is Commissioner Ballard, and I consider it part of my honor to take over Steve Cooper's place. I guess that's what I did onto the commission. So yes, I will serve.
Do I have a second on my nomination?
Commissioner Fire Robbins, second.
So I have a motion and a second. Do vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Commissioner Ballard, you are the backup lobbyist. Staff will get in touch with you to show you what you need to do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Administrator Schmidt, do you want to move on to D, plugging wells?
Sure. Yes, thank you and congratulations, Commissioner Ballard. Yes, item 2D, plugging wells. Just to kind of give the commissioners some updates on the initial grant work that we're doing under the Orphan Well Program. We successfully plugged our first well back in late March, early April. It was a well in Pinal County near the Casa Grande area. It was a 3,500-foot well, close to 4,000, I guess you could say. And so we spent several weeks out there on that site plugging that well. There was, of course, some challenges with that. There was a lot of trash and debris that was in the well, but we did get that out, and we did get good plugging behind that. So that well is considered finished and done and off our books. And so we are prepared to now move on, starting in the new fiscal year, beginning July 1, to start securing and getting pluggers into the state of Arizona to start plugging wells that we have identified to move to that phase. So looking forward, and we're excited about doing that.
Commissioner Thorwald here. How many more wells do we have to plug?
Right now, we've had 80 wells that we confirmed in inventory that we're going to move forward, but 40 that we are going to start looking at plugging. That number could change depending on field work. Field work is still being done out in the field, but to investigate and characterize sites and go looking at some other sites. But we have 40 at least right now that we're going to begin working on.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for Administrator on this? Any comments?
This is Commissioner Nations. I just want to congratulate you on the progress you're making with this.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's an exciting project. The team is, I have a really good team that we're working with. And yeah, I think, and good contractors. So we're looking forward to seeing us get through the rest of the grant work and completing this for the commission.
Yes, this is Commissioner Ballard. I just want to echo Commissioner Nation's sentiment. I'm very glad to see this underway.
Yes, and so are we. So thank you, Commissioner Ballard. Is there any other questions or comments that I can take up on that, or before we move on?
Why don't you just move on? Go ahead and move on to item E, software updates.
Okay, item E, software updates. So yes, commissioners, under the grant, the initial state grant, the federal Orphan Well Program monies that the DEQ has is part of that project is to do software development. It's a database application. And so right now, where we are in this process is after about a year of work, we are complete with the database development portion of the project and ready for uploading some data into that database. So we are just waiting to have the University of Arizona finish up a little bit more work on some of our files and getting some of that spreadsheet information into shape. And then we're going to make one upload into the database and then another upload somewhere maybe in the beginning of the new year. But we're excited about that. It's finally coming to fruition. And then in the formula grant work that we're going to be doing over the next couple of years, well, we do have the software vendor that is going to enhance or add some other features to the software as we move along. So So not only are we at this stage finished with the first phase of the project, but we are going to be doing some more enhancement to it to kind of not only help us deal with the orphan wells in general that we do have, but also in reducing new orphan wells from becoming an issue down the road. So we're kind of excited about doing that. So that will kick off, beginning in the new fiscal year as well. So any questions I can take up from the commissioners or comments? Okay, moving on to item F then.
Before you move on to item
yeah.
F, Commissioner Thorold, where are we on the software updates for the website?
The website is complete. We have a demo version right now, and it is scheduled to be live for everyone's access on June 1st. So we're kind of putting some kind of touches and finishes on it with some images and some of the content, but we are demoing it right now, and we will in the next meeting we're going to plan to present that site and go through that site with the commission and all the folks that are on the call, and demonstrates some of the information that we have available to share on the site, and then taking a look at it as well. So, yeah.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for our administrator on that or on either of those software updates? Hearing none, Administrator Schmidt,
Okay.
Move on to item F.
Item F, the grant process. Okay. Right now, as you're all aware, that we are working under the initial state grant right now, and that was the $25 million that was awarded to ADEQ for working on the orphan wells and plugging all of those wells that we previously discussed. Currently, we've kind of had an adjustment in the award. We received a new award in middle of February, almost beginning of March, from the DOI, Department of Interior. And we are working to kind of continue on the process of investigating and characterizing those wells. We've been using the grant monies to do drone magnetometer surveys. So we have actually found wells that we didn't even know existed before using that technology. So that technology has been well worth the effort that we've been doing on that. We've actually located wells that we needed to find as well using that technology. So in the next phase of work under the initial grant, we will start moving in, as I explained earlier, to plugging wells. And so we'll be doing that starting over the next year, with hopefully finishing up that work by September of 25 or earlier, depending on how things go. And then we also have another grant that's in process, which is the formula grant. So this was in addition to the initial state grant monies. It was to the tune of about $5 million. And we've earmarked some of that money, about $1.6 million, to plug additional orphan wells that we've identified with those monies. So not only an initial grant we'll be doing plug-in, but we'll be doing it under the formula grant as well. And so that'll be coming up, and we expect that award sometime around July 1. Our application has been in, it's been under review. We've submitted some responses to questions that DOI had on it, and we're hoping that award will come July 1st, and then we can get started on the task at hand under that grant. So,
Commissioner, do you have any questions or discussions with regard to the grant process that Administrator Schmidt has outlined?
Hey Frank, this is Joe Dixon with State Land. I got a quick question there too on the well, you were talking about plugging. How much was spent on that one? You have a final number on that or not?
That one, it was for the drilling costs were $483,000, and probably about another 10 to 15 in oversight from the contractor consultant on the site and reporting on it as well. So yeah, so close to 500,000. I don't expect that to be the norm, Joe. I expect it to be a bit cheaper on a lot of these others, but the challenges were that there was a lot of trash in this one, and we had to get that out ahead of it. The casing was old. This well was drilled like in the 1940s or earlier, a little earlier, and so you had to deal with some corroded casing. So there was some lost circulation. We had to squeeze behind the pipe, and so there was a few things we had to do that took some extra time and challenges. But I don't expect every well to cost us that much.
This is Commissioner Thorwald. Just FYI on that cost, the national numbers on that for both the federal plugging for federal funds and state is 35,000.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I was going to ask you, where was that well that you plugged? Was it on private land or state land, or?
it was on private. It's on private. Well, it's on private land. Yes. There was a commercial project that's ongoing there. It's a solar farm. So yeah, that well was on their property.
Okay. Yeah. So I was going to ask those questions when you're talking about the well, but I'm having some problems with my microphone, I guess. Okay, thanks,
What's that?
guys.
Oh, yes. Yeah, sure, John.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on this for Administrator Schmidt? Hearing none, you want to move on to item G?
Yeah, item G, rule changes. Currently, commissioners, we are in the process of course, looking at the rules, AEC 12-7 and our statutes as well, 27,500, and just a couple of things. GERC had approved our 5-year rule review report last year, back in August or September of last year. And we've been working through those changes, particularly in the areas of fees and some of the bonds, working with some of the bonds. Of course, as you know, we only have one fee right now, which is for an application to drill. So we are planning to make some changes in those things. But then also going through and tightening up the language and clarifying, making more clear some of the language in the rules. So those are things we're working on right now. And also looking at, one or two statutory changes down the road. But now we're in the process of working internally on those rule changes, and then we'll engage with stakeholders and all of the required people that we need to have comment or look at those things as we move forward.
And I assume prior to, this is a question, this is member Commissioner Thorwald.
Yeah.
That prior to public, that the commissioners will be able to review it for their comments.
I'm almost
finalization.
Yes, I believe so, Commissioner. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions on rule changes? What's the timeline?
We told GERC that we would try to get them done by August, and that's what we're still trying to do. So we're still working on that timeline. We've been working on them recently, pretty heartily. So I don't see that we can't meet that, but it depends.
When do you expect that you can get the draft out to the commissioners to take a look at for their input?
I would say probably maybe in the next month or so.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any other questions on the rule changes? Hearing none, let's move on to item 3. Chairman's report on produced water. I met with DEQ's Water Quality Division and talked about that, about a guidance document for operators on groundwater. And at that meeting, I had somebody from the Groundwater Protection Council who was working with them on it and specialized in injection. And we were talking about what we needed to do to show that an aquifer protection permit was not needed. And we had this fairly extensive discussion for about an hour and a half about this. The finalization of that was that I would put together a document outlining different technologies that could work without adding any additional pollutants to the water after it's processed, after the helium and other gases have been removed before it's re-injected, and submit that to groundwater to take a look at. And I have not done that. I wanted to do the AZOGCC meeting first to discussed that, and I've done that, and we'll prepare that for groundwater. And that's all I have on that subject. If there's any questions, is there any questions from the commission on that, commissioners? Hearing none, let's move on to item 4, call to the public. Is there anybody in the public that would like to say something? Knowing that we are also on the internet, let's give it a minute so people can respond. If you wish to contact us, what's the procedure there? I don't see it on the screen to read it.
I'm sorry.
Administrator Schmidt,
Yeah,
if somebody wants to reach us right now by phone or contact us, how can they do that?
There's the number. You can reach me at you can reach us at 602-771-4501.
Or if they want to talk to us right now online, will that get them to us? How will they get to us online?
They can. The number should be the number. The dial-in number is 669-444-971, and it's up at the top of the agenda. So if anybody's listening that for some reason doesn't have the agenda or doesn't see the agenda, the number is 669-444-9171. And the meeting ID is 885-1479-3170. And the passcode is 408996.
When we get to that point in the agenda, let's in the future, let's put that down at the bottom too, where people can see it again.
Sure.
That way, if it's on the screen and they don't have it in front of them, they can get to it. So
sure, absolutely.
This is Commissioner Firehoben. A quick point. Occasionally in life, I found where somebody gives you instructions to do something and you do that and it does not work. Just to be absolutely certain the public could get in one time, could we have one of us call in during the public section just to demonstrate that it does work?
What time could you call in?
No, I'm just saying, just run a quick test again to be sure that just to repeat myself.
Oh, okay.
I found occasionally in life tracking down things,
Uh-huh.
you're told how to do it and it doesn't really work. So just to be absolutely certain we're giving the public what they need.
Oh, sure. I mean,
one of us call in using their what's in front of their eyes just to demonstrate that it's, complete and correct instructions. I don't doubt it is, but just to, be certain.
Sure, we can have one of our team call in and try it. Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Do we want to try that now, or do we want to wait for the next meeting, or we could try it now if you'd like.
I'm fine either way.
Okay. Holly, would you be willing to call in?
I can do it, Chris.
Or Wendy? So Wendy Flood, one of our project managers, will try just try as if she just had the number and able to get into the meeting.
Administrator Schmidt,
Yes.
are we publicizing this, the meetings, passing that out on the internet to the news media or radio stations or anybody so they will.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, there's
Yes.
Wendy.
This is Wendy calling in for public comment, and I do not have any.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for testing, Wendy.
You're welcome. It was a lot of putting, but it all worked perfectly fine.
Great.
Thank you, Wendy. Commissioner Thorwald, Chairman, I'm not sure exactly where. I shouldn't say not exactly. We are making public notice. We are posting our meeting agendas and having it available to the public through the website and through postings at the offices, the ADEQ offices. I will have to check up with our comms team to find out exactly. It all goes out through our Gov delivery system, which is now going to change to a different type of software. But anybody subscribed to that would get notification of the meetings and the information that we're providing. But as far as media, I would have to check with our comms team to see exactly what media outlets might be getting the posting. So I don't have that information right at my fingertips, but I'll check into that.
Am I correct in the assumption that we can, somebody that has comments can use the email to send it into the comments in?
Comments to us on anything? Sure. Use the AZOGCC email?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. The email is on the website. There's ways to contact the commission on the website or in documents that we do put out to the public, and then also any of the industry folks that would like to get a hold of us, any letters that we're sending out to them. We always provide our contact information, and they could call in or email us. Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We've had plenty of time now for public comments, requests. So let's move on to requests for future agenda items. Commissioners, is there anything that you would like to have on the agenda for the future?
Hey, Frank, this is Joe Dixon of State Landing, and I was actually going to make a comment there too. I don't know if anybody else saw this thing. Right after the last commission meeting, they had an announcement there. The feds are going to be increasing their royalty rate on their oil and gas production from 12.5 to 16 2/3, I think it was. And they're also going to be greatly increasing their bonding requirements on any wells on federal lands too. I don't know if that came up at the last meeting or not there, but.
Okay. You, Administrator Schmidt, do you want to talk to Land Department and coordinate that for our next meeting?
Sure, we can put that on the agenda for next meeting to talk about that. I did hear about that, and I've read a little bit about it. Yeah, thanks, Joe, for mentioning that. Yeah, I definitely saw some press releases about it.
We should probably also ask for the DEQ as well to talk about that, because we want to make sure that all three entities, oil and gas as well, are balanced. So we should all have that in the next meeting, discussion about that, so that we're not all charging the same kind of fees for the same things and the bonds. And we need coordination.
Okay.
Yeah. Keenan Murray from the BLM there too. He's the lead for the oil and gas stuff there too. You could have him. Get involved in it also.
Sure. Yeah, I'll go ahead and we'll touch base on those things and put it on the agenda for discussion or talking about that next meeting. Yeah, great. I think that's next meeting will be July 5th.
Okay. Anything? When is the next meeting?
July 5th.
July 5th.
So I'm sorry, and I apologize ahead of time for anybody taking a vacation.
Is there any announcements? Moving on to item 6. Again, Mr. Ballard, pleasure to have you on board with us.
Thank you very much, sir.
Moving on to item 7, it is 10:41 a.m. and this meeting of the Arizona Oil and Gas Conservation Commission is concluded. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, commissioners. Everyone else, have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.